welcome to today's edition of The Faculty, right here on Delta Television, Asaba, the People's Pride. My name is Onome Iyarowe, your host this afternoon. Well, The Faculty is a regular program on Delta Television where we x-ray issues as politics, social issues, matters of health, just name it, we bring them to your doorstep right here on The Faculty. Today we're looking at a very pertinent topic, an issue that is affecting virtually every family in Nigeria today, as WAEC 2025, the ups and downs of the ongoing examination. What exactly is the issue with WAEC? What has changed from what we used to have when children write or seek to write their WAEC examinations? What exactly is different from what is happening today in Nigeria as it concerns the WAEC examination? Well, there are so many issues, so many complaints and observations. A lot of irregularities are fraught in this examination that we want to x-ray this afternoon with our great journalists in the house. And so joining me is Churchill Oyowe to my immediate left, Comrade Churchill Oyowe.
Thank you for having me.
So good to have you. And then of course we have Comrade Henry Wanze.
The pleasure is always mine. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So good to have you. All right, the issue before us is WAEC 2025, ups and downs. The questions people have been asking, what has changed from what we used to know about WAEC and conducting this examination in particular? Comrade Churchill, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, we must understand WAEC as a regional body for conducting exams so that it can meet international standards. Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, and later Liberia. So the essence is for standardization and for international acceptance. So if you have a WAEC certificate, it means that it is recognized all over the world, and that speaks volumes. When standard, and that is why we are concerned that the standard of WAEC is dropping. Not that we've not always had challenges. I wrote mine in 1988. We had our challenges then. So the challenges have not left us. It's just that it kept deteriorating. And one of the challenges we can identify is basically logistics. You find that before the exam starts, some centers would have gotten the scripts, some wouldn't have gotten. And so you see leakages here and there. That will lead to exam malpractice. Okay. And again, it affects the quality of persons that will eventually be certificated as holders of WAEC. Secondly, that problem of corruption has never ceased. You find officials who are aware that the product you produce is the product you will get at the end of the day in society, but they will still compromise standard. I'm talking about the examiners, the tutors, those who are given that responsibility to supervise exams. Corruption is there. It is not today. It's just that the tempo has increased, and that's why some of us are maybe looking at it as strange. But then WAEC remains WAEC, so we continue to have such challenges except something drastic is done. Beside that, those ones, there are areas that are so remote where WAEC exams are being held in the country and elsewhere in West Africa. That is usually difficult to penetrate. Before you can have the questions and the exam materials to get to those places, it might just be the next day. So these are basically the problems WAEC is facing, that is making the standard to be dropping on a yearly basis. This year's one was even more alarming, to the extent that we hear that some students wrote at night. Not just at night, there was no lights to enable them write. They were not using cell phone flashlight.
The most worrisome aspect of it is that most of these schools are schools in urban centers, not even rural areas where we say, okay, there are no good access to.
So if it can happen in urban centers, you can best imagine the kind of situation you have in rural areas. So the problem with WAEC is that every year it keeps declining in standard, and we have to really be concerned, because a time will come when the rest of the world will no longer recognize WAEC as a standardized certificate meant for international acceptance.
All right. We want to hold, let's get your view on this. A lot's been said. Let's take some of the words, some of the reactions from citizens, especially from former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. He said, what is happening with WAEC, the ongoing WAEC, is a national embarrassment. Indeed, it's almost turning into a national embarrassment. Centers, students getting question papers very late, supervisors getting to their destination, to their designated centers very, very late to conduct examinations in the dark. So many things, irregularities, cheating and the likes. What would you say is really happening with WAEC?
I think it's a systemic failure. Rightly said, WAEC is an examination body that we look up to, that it's we hold it in high esteem. A lot of people have passed through that process. Even some of them have gone up to become professors, have become captains of industries and all that. So WAEC is a force to reckon with when it comes to examination standards in West Africa sub-region, as it were. So this whole issue is, like I said, is a systemic failure. Is a problem of the system that has broken down, that needs to be fixed. And it doesn't just come from just WAEC as a body. It's just unfortunate that WAEC is now in the eye of the storm. It goes or brings to the fore the entire rot in our educational system. This whole thing, everybody's, there's a lot of furore about this whole thing because it happened the way it happened. It's like a ticking time bomb. It has been there.
Okay. When you say it because it happened the way it happened,
yes,
or it's happening the way it's happening.
Or it happened the way it happened.
What exactly?
Yes. What I'm saying is that the signs, the symptoms were already there over time, and this is the problem I have. That's why I think Nigeria is a comedy of errors. Rightly put, the thing is the symptoms were not dealt with over time.
Okay.
How do I put it? If you plan an examination, for instance, you're supposed to go back and do an evaluation report of everything that took place. Just like the issue we're having with JAM now. Over time, look at it and see the areas you need to improve on. But it looks like we're not really doing that reassessment or evaluation of how far you have gone and what needs to be improved upon. Now, even with all this old thing, you will still end up at the end of the day, we will still have issues tomorrow because we fail to do what we call that integrity test to ensure we know what are the, how will I put it now, the areas, the vulnerable points in this whole thing. And one of them, it's very, very clear. And this issue, because one of the reasons they attributed to this delay or what we witnessed was that the exam papers were leaked. 2 days, the exam was supposed to be on May 28th. As at Tuesday, the papers were out. Some Saturdays, Sundays.
So who is to blame? When you have leakages from an examination body as that,
that's the point.
Am I the one who...
You are not going to blame the parents.
Exactly.
You're not going to blame the students.
That's
what I'm saying. So the onus is on WAEC itself. That means there are no adequate, even if there are internal controls, there are no strong internal control measures put in place to prevent such from happening. To the extent that you've discovered that the papers were leaked and you had to now reprint or redo it again, and you didn't take into cognizance, the after effect, to the extent that the students had to be at the branch to write exams at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. It depends on your area. Yeah. Imagine like in Lagos and other places, some people came back home around 12 a.m.
We're talking about Lagos.
No, I'm not saying that. Then Asaba, you talk about urban and rural. Even in Unity School here, we heard that people were taking torches, and that also brings to the fore. If our schools, that I said, not just why would there not even be a source of power in a school environment, in an urban center? I mean, that speaks volumes. That's why I say. So the issue, yes, we're talking about right, but it is a gamut of about the X-ray should be on the entire our educational system as a whole. Okay. Has a lot of issues to do. Yeah.
All right, Comrade Churchill, you just heard that view. The X-ray should be on our educational system as a whole because there is a systemic failure. It's gradually failing. Now we've gotten to this point. What would you say can bring changes to this educational system? Look at the invitation by the House of Representatives to the body, the WAEC body. It wasn't honored. Where are we and where are we heading to in this country?
Okay, let's first and foremost look at, I've mentioned corruption in high places before, okay. But let's look at how we are funding education in the first place. Education has a benchmark globally in any budget. I'm not very sure, but it's around 27%.
As UNESCO standards. We're not even meeting up to that.
If we are even meeting up to 15%, no. We are not even up to 10%. Either at the local or the national level, we are not meeting all that standard. So they say garbage in, garbage out. It is what you put in the system that the system will bring out. If the system is not edified enough in terms of infrastructure, then infrastructure, manpower training, then you don't expect magic. Nobody can conjure good results from WAEC. I mean good performance. So it is important that we look at the way we feed the education sector to be sure that the infrastructure are in place. We are talking about writing exams in the night. Situations can cause it. But if there were to be good lighting system, electricity or generator, that would have reduced the concerns that people are having. At least people will say there was still visibility in the course of doing the exam. A lot of things would have been compromised in the course of using torch, handset and the rest. And it tells about the standard. It tells a lot about the kind of people that will be certificated at the end of the day. So we need to look at the way we budget for education to ensure that it's, even if it cannot meet the UNESCO standard, we should go beyond 10% from the local government to the state government to the federal government. Gradually, we see that we'll be bridging the gap of infrastructural deficit, manpower deficit, and other logistics that make for good and excellent educational system. Secondly, we need to look at the manpower. Sometimes I don't blame, I believe that it is integrity that counts most times. But integrity that is not backed with welfare, good welfare for staff and training, will amount to nothing, will compromise eventually. So we need to look at those who are managing the educational system, and in particular WAEC, to ensure that these people, their welfare is taken care of as workers. They are trained and retrained on the job that they are doing. And of course, there is need for proper discipline. The idea of godfatherism should not come in, because the time you compromise in bringing out appropriate discipline on erring officials, you are gradually killing the system. You are making the system to be susceptible to further damage, because anybody cannot take example from somebody that was not punished to perpetrate acts of indiscipline in the system. So when the system needs to take discipline seriously. As you are upgrading their welfare, as you are upgrading their take-home pay, you are training them, they should also emphasize on discipline. Again, I want to look at this area. It's very key. We are in the digital era. We should try as much as possible to spread our broadband. our internet connectivity to as many parts as possible in the country. You don't necessarily need to carry bulk of papers to one location or the other. Once the questions are ready, online you can distribute it automatically to every center that you write exam in WAEC. So there will not be any logistic problem of say boat delayed, vehicle had an accident. So that way, if you digitize the system, if you make it digital, computerize the system also, it will help to standardize whatever WAEC is doing.
Okay.
I believe strongly that we need to upgrade our infrastructure. Anywhere WAEC is writing the exam, if any center cannot meet, then that center is not good enough to host WAEC examination. That way, you will see that the standard will improve and that level of malpractice will also reduce. Because if there is any leakage, the person it must be traceable to somebody.
Okay.
In that regard, because everybody will receive their own almost at the same time, because it is digital. If I send a WhatsApp message now, it is only network that will make it not to get. Yes. And if it doesn't get to you, I will know it did not get to you. You understand me? So we will, to a large extent, reduce malpractice and other delays that are associated with the West African Examination Council examination.
Okay, let's have your point here. He just mentioned 3 major points: budgeting for the education sector, welfare of staff, or welfare of examination officers. By extension, he talked about discipline and digitization. I know you want to add to what he just said, because beyond the leakage of a particular paper, before that paper actually leaked, that's the English language paper, there were already irregularities where we saw students, or where we saw centers where examinations were taken very late in the evening. What would be your addition to what he shared with us?
Yeah, like I said before, over the years there have been a lot of issues that has actually been in form of symptoms that we have ignored.
Okay.
You know, it's just like a case of we refuse to catch the black billy goat before it gets dark, and now it has gotten dark now. Imagine pursuing a black billy goat at night. You can't see it. So that's exactly where we are now. I align myself with all the views raised, but I have an issue with the issue of welfare as well. It's like people having to give excuses for committing crime because of poverty. I totally disagree. People say you need motivation, give them salary, so like the police force, increase their salaries and all these things. I say no.
But that is already happening.
Yeah, so the point is, yeah, while welfare of staff is very important, it motivates them, I am still saying the typical man is greedy. He's not satisfied with having just this one. He wants, as he's holding on to this one, he's looking on to the other thing. Mm-hmm. So the typical man is greedy. So it requires, apart from the welfare, reorientation, you know, and that's, you know, at the point of entry into the whatever organization you find yourself in, the civil service, you should be able to know the kind of persons you are recruiting. Like I said, even when I was talking about the issue of the police and the rest of it, know the kind of people you are recruiting. Don't bring people who have a past, a very, you know,
like bad record.
Exactly. You know, these are the things, and when you get them into the system, there's no point. They would definitely corrupt the system. Another aspect I'm going to come, which is discipline, but in a different form. He said it in another way, was no consequences for actions done. It has always been the issue, not just on this issue of WAEC, but for all our institutions. Like what we have institutions that are not strong. We have individuals that are stronger than, you know, our institutions. What are the consequences for actions done? There should be no sacred cows. Somebody does something, something should be done about it. We know we have this thing in our penal code and all that. How well have we been able to do it in such a way that you use somebody as a deterrent? And when you use somebody as a deterrent to others, they will learn. There should be stronger and stringent, you know, penalties for offenders, for both those who are involved in racketeering, for exam runs and all that, and even those who buy from them too. Because, like I say, when sellers of bad ideas are not in the market, fools will not buy. So it is like that. And the issue of technology is very important. But I also have an issue with technology. Yeah, many people have called for the issue of CBT like we have in JAM, and other places having exams online, which we've seen worked very well, and I agree with it. That way it would stop the incidence of logistical challenges of getting this paper. We should, move. There should be a migration from paper exam to this issue of, of online exam. I agree. But we still need to address the issues we continue to have with technology. We are not there yet. We want to move with the rest of the world, but we are still moving at a snail pace. Look at the issue we had with INEC the other time, the issue of glitch. JAM also had a glitch recently, So those issues need to be tackled. We shouldn't rush into it. We should be able to know everything that is required to ensure that that system works before we now migrate from where we are now to going for a CBT or making that technological advancement. That's why I see it. We shouldn't rush it.
All right. Beautiful point you've given us here. Now let's look at who to blame and how do we put a stop to these issues of malpractice, from the WAEC officials who leak the examination papers, to invigilators, to supervisors who encourage school children to cheat, to the students themselves who were believing at the future, tomorrow's future, and leaders. Who to blame, and what is the best way to stop all of this, starting from the top, which is WAEC now?
Okay. You see, we are human beings. Okay. We are difficult to control. Animals are easier to control. Once they are used to a routine, they are used to that routine, except you alter the routine. Mm-hmm. But for human beings, their higher capacity in terms of thinking has made them to be very difficult and complex. Who to blame? It's the entire society. Okay. From the parents to the students to the teachers to those who supervise the teachers to the politicians who believe that anything can happen with influence and money. And you look at it, it's something that is affecting all of us. So we all have our shares of blames. Now, if you ask me who to really blame, I want to believe that everybody, but we have to look at how we can excise ourselves from such blames. Okay. If you are aware of consequences, you will be less inclined to be involved in acts that will bring consequences. Now, if you look at the vehicle system, the way vehicles move in some Senate line, they are very conscious that a system, a technology is monitoring them. Okay. So they take care of how they drive. They know the limit for a particular area. They are very conscious not to be caught in any acts of road traffic offense. That is the way I want to look at it in our climb. Because if you leave it like that, nobody will be obedient to the rules. We need to use technology to check indiscipline and malpractice in the system. Technology to check indiscipline and malpractice in the system. That's why I was saying earlier on that Nigeria has grown very big. So the centers have also increased. Okay. But why should come up with a policy to ensure that any place that qualifies to be a center should have minimum requirement of light technology in place. Okay. If you are writing the exam and there is a monitor there, the monitor is seeing everybody, including the teacher, including the supervisors. And I tell you, there will be sanity. Everybody will be conscious of the fact that a system is monitoring me. The way it is in developed world, where they are aware that they are being monitored, and they now whip themselves into line to obey the rules. That's how it should be here.
So we have gone beyond being monitored by individuals, by supervisors, in this case, by supervisors, by principals. Now it has to be technologically, so it should be technologically done. In a climate where we know that we are not advanced yet in technology, we are facing issues with INEC, with elections, then we're talking about conducting exams and having technology to monitor. To what extent do you think
I'm coming. That is one.
Okay.
That is one. My colleague here talked about entry points. The entry point also matters.
Okay.
We don't just need to employ just anybody because they want to be in the education sector as teachers or field teachers or as administrators. Okay. We need to carry out proper tests that we prove that they truly have passion for teaching, and if they fail, you don't take them. For example, I was looking at a particular structure for employing people. Everybody enters, some will leave the gate open. They will take note of that person. You enter the premises, you leave the gate open, they take note of that person. Then somebody enters and he closes the gate, they take note of that person.
Okay.
That is a test.
Okay.
For somebody who is decent. If you are looking for somebody a decent person to occupy a particular position, you can use that as a test.
Okay.
So anybody that they want to employ as teacher, they know the psychologists, they know how to prepare tests for such persons. And when such persons fail, you know that they will never be good in that system. They will only pretend for some time. So the entry point is very important. You take those who have passion, who are qualified, not just qualified, but who have passion for the discipline, for the educational sector. Lastly, I believe strongly that what is going on well for people in the developed world is because their welfare is well taken care of. They can die for their job because they know that the system will take care of them or their family. So we should bring all those into our system. Okay. Not just saying people should retire and go. These days, people are doing everything possible to take care of their future. The system will take care of the future of those who are working for the system.
Okay.
If my future is secured, there's nothing I cannot do for my society. I will do everything to make sure that my society works. And anybody who is honest and has integrity, you see those people fighting everything that will make the system to collapse. So, like my brother here said, we need to develop a strong system, rather than strong individuals.
Okay.
That way, we will help to save our education system and every other system that makes for society to grow.
Okay. Well, coming to you, Comrade Henry Nwanze. He mentioned two things now, technology and welfare for our teachers or our workers in general, if you like. You made mention of deterrent, some disciplinary measures that will serve as deterrent. So far, how would you describe the education system, especially as it concerns the conduct of examinations, where we have seen teachers, those who are put over the children to conduct examinations, even becoming the culprits without discipline, without sanction? And we're looking at a system that will be sanitized for the sake of our children, for the sake of Nigerian future. What would you say is happening to discipline and the children education?
Yeah, I will start by using the Latin maxim, nemo dat quod non habet. You do not give what you don't have.
Okay.
So you don't expect somebody who is a thief to come as much as possible to be able to cleanse the system, because it is what is used to. So now look at our senators, look at our members of House of Reps and those in the House of Assembly and the rest of them. Over the years, we've had cases of many of them who had WAEC issues or certificate forgery, even if at the end of the day, you know, the thing disappears into thing, but we know there are question marks on some of them. So how do you expect some of these persons to be able to purge the system of some of these wrongs we're talking about? So even if with the technological advancement and all that, for instance, I catch A in the act, He said something very significant, and that A is he has a godfather.
It is the faculty right here on Delta Television, Asaba, the People's Pride. And we're discussing WAEC 2025 ups and downs. So far, our great panelists here, a panelist of Churchill Oyowe and Comrade Henry Wanze, have talked to us about the systemic failure in the education system that is the result of, that is the effect of what we're seeing with the current WAEC examination. And so we've gotten to the point where we're trying to profile solutions, and we talked about technology and welfare of the people, then of course discipline for erring staff, or erring staff majorly, especially of teachers, WAEC officials and the likes. And so we'll get back to Comrade Henry Wanze.
Yes.
To put it straight away. Yes, let's get that point to the end.
Yes, as I was saying before, yes. Welfare for staff, technology, they are all very good. Although I have
discipline,
my issues.
yes.
I talked about the issue, the fact that we need to understudy countries that these things have really worked. You know, because we are good at copying. We tell them we copy the American Constitution. We operate a bicameral legislature. We just copy and we just cherry pick. We don't really get to pick every good thing, and that's the problem with us. Now, so it is pertinent that we understudy countries where these things have worked. Okay. Like rightly said, it is done in the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and other West African countries. How has it worked? Have they experienced this kind of problem? That is what I was trying to say. Over time, do you do an assessment, an evaluation to see how far this particular year's exam has fared? What are the areas, what areas of concern we need to improve on? Oftentimes you don't spend money or resources for that. We're only concerned about you stop and you think that's all. No. When you do something, you should be able to evaluate where you have gone wrong or where you have done well to improve on. That's the area we're feeling. Then the issue of deterrent to others, like I said, I'm going to say this. Even technology. If you like to put the technological advancement in place and you catch, those who are involved in that, like I said, it's not just the invigilators or the officials, both parents and students, they are all involved in this. Everybody, both the buyer and seller are also guilty. But what happens thereafter? That's where we are. Because at the end of it, because of the issue of being sacred cow, you have one godfather, a traditional law, or one member of reps or this on your side, that person escapes the law. And it's not supposed to be so. But by the time one person so prominent in society has been made to go through maybe 5 years or whatever year, I know there is something in the penal code, I can't really state it now, and it is clear, and that thing becomes is now on your record, every other person will fall in line. Like this issue of the Bakassi time in the southeast, yes. And people, and it is saying that there are no sacred cows. People will continue to do what they are doing, and the society as a whole. It is that bad. When we were growing up, and there's this slogan we were taught: honesty is the best policy. That he kept on reechoing in our minds. It's no longer the case. Nobody wants to be honest. Everybody wants to make money, cut corners, and all that. Everybody wants life is on a fast lane. Even the students now want it done so quick because the system recognizes mediocrity. The system, idolizes wealth. How you make that wealth, nobody cares to know. And so that thing is rubbing off on all, our way of life. So these are the issues we need to really talk about. And enlightenment, it has to start even from our churches and our mosques in the communities, about the need for people to realize that honesty pays, truth pays, hard work pays. Because this issue is cutting corners, trying to the examination malpractice, because we now see laziness as a means of getting to it. Nobody wants to work. Everybody wants an Eldorado without working for it, and it's affecting all sectors of our life, the way we view things, and that's exactly what has eaten deep into this issue of this WAEC that we've seen now, this scandal, as it were.
Okay, well, back to you, Comrade Churchill. Just last week, the House of Representatives summoned the WAEC body to the House of Representatives for questions or for questioning, but that did not happen because the examination officials or the WAEC body refused their invitation. What would you say of this? For instance, the invitation was honored. What do you think? What changes do you think the House of Representatives will bring into the conduct of WAEC in Nigeria?
If the House of Representatives cannot summon a registrar or any official of WAEC, then they should be questioning themselves, where has the powers gone to? The powers given to that House of Rep.
I'm sure you saw the excuse they gave, that they are conducting the examination and so they cannot be there.
That is not an excuse.
That's not an excuse.
The registrar is not in the field. There are many other registrars, there's the deputy registrars, there are so many other officials. Even if he cannot go, he can delegate somebody. So it tells you a lot about our legislature. They have reduced their relevance as a body that can check the executive. And if common registrar, we're not talking about minister now, we're not talking about one high and mighty official in the executive. It's the standard we have given to ourselves over time since this 1999 constitution came into being. You see people will be summoned, they will flagrantly turn down such summons, and later they will be giving excuses that are not tenable. In some crimes, if you refuse, you will be arrested. The legislature has the power to summon the Commissioner of Police or the Inspector General of Police to carry out such arrests. But you look at it, we have a system where we have a president that is like beyond the Constitution. The president is bigger than the Constitution. So even the House of the National Assembly cannot check the president. So that is the consequences of what we are having. A situation where the president is above the Constitution. Others that fall under the president will also be above the Constitution. That act is an act that runs contrary to the dictates of the Constitution. But you see it happening. So we really need to look at the system we are operating. If the president cannot be checked because he is in charge of the EFCC, the National Assembly.
It's very sad. Comrade Henry Wanze, your last word as we wrap up.
Yes, build our systems and make it stronger, because we have a broken system. We have individuals who have no choice but to fall in the other way around. I think in this case, like putting the cart before the horse. Institutions will be stronger, and when institutions are stronger, they have mechanisms or modus operandi. You know this is how it operates. Everybody knows. You do not wait for an Okowa police to stop you or to arrest you that you beat the traffic. You know automatically that you are supposed to stop when the traffic light says red, or as the case may be. Don't you understand? But because the system, they know, they have a way of also circumventing and jumping the system, beating the system as it were. They can continue to do this. So I will still continue to advocate that WAEC needs to go back to the drawing board and look at the areas they need to improve upon. Even if they want to go to technology in terms of doing CBT, they need to understudy countries where these things have worked. The issue of technology, we're still having challenges, even in the banking sector. Exactly. We need to work on that very well before we embark on such, and more resources should be put at the right places, not just give money to some persons who embezzle those funds and not put it where it ought to be.
Where it ought to be. All right, Comrade Churchill, this that has been happening with WAEC 2025 is affecting directly the children, the school children. Some are happy with what is happening because they are part of the cheating. Some are not happy. Some are already discouraged because they will not be part of cheating. They will not be part of a bad system, while some other ones are flowing with what is happening. What would be your advice to children in particular and their parents?
Well, these difficult times, you really need to be sympathetic towards the families. Transportation to venue is an issue. Having transported and you are told to come the next day or the other day, you did not budget for all these things. So what I will say is for people to remain who they are. That's integrity and honesty pays. Those who are short-circuiting the system and the process now will always meet their Waterloo somehow. They will be exposed someday, somehow. You cannot eat your cake and have it. You cannot escape from your incapacitation. If you cannot enhance yourself now, someday it will expose you. So people should remain consistent with their being, remain honest, let integrity be the watchword. Go for education. Education is no scam. That way we will build our country educationally.
Exactly. Integrity is key. WAEC, you've heard it. Our officials, our school principals, our supervisors, children who are writing this WAEC, you've heard it. Integrity is key. Education is key. Education is real. It opens doors. It's a stepping stone for a better life. We want to say a big thank you for being part of this discourse this afternoon. WAEC 2025, ups and downs. A very big thank you to our panelists, Comrade Churchill Oyowe, and of course Comrade Henry Wanze. Thank you for joining us. Let's hope that things will change for the better, especially as it concerns examination and examination bodies and conduct in Nigeria. We'll see you again bright and early tomorrow. Good afternoon.
And good to have you join us on News Update for One. I am Princess Modi. Believers have been urged to remain united to the Holy Spirit and to stir up the desire in their hearts to own land through legitimate means. The Province 1 Chairman of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, PFN, Reverend Stephen Edramoda, gave the charge at a strategic meeting of PFN leaders in Delta North. The gathering held at Mount Ararat International Ministry, Okpanam, in Oshimili, North Local Government Area. Henry Unowa reports.
Reverend Edremoda emphasized the importance of land ownership and enlightened the clergy on the need for proper documentation in all land-related transactions, adding that many believers have suffered setback such as illegal rent increment, forceful ejections, and ownership dispute due to poor or non-existent documentations. He listed the legitimate means of acquiring land include inheritance, purchase, and gift, encouraging pastors and other believers who were yet to regularize their land documentation to do so, to avoid legal complications. He emphasized that while soul winning remained a central cause, it should not overshadow the need for order and legality.
The program is to enlighten church land ownership, documentation, and registration so that they can at all times do the right thing. And we're very grateful to God because our pastors have been enlightened, they've been schooled, and they've been reoriented.
In Goodwill messages, the state chairman of the PFN, Bishop Abbas Willie, among others, commended Reverend Edremoda, called for unity among believers as well as support and respect for church leadership, stating that such unity would help gain government recognition and encouragement with the church community.
SAN that came to talk at lands, he has opened the eyes of the attendees, and it's something that we need to bring to the church, let everyone know their rights so that they can do things orderly.
What he did also help the government to acquire certain revenue, because churches who have not registered their land will now register, and then the government will benefit.
I've enjoyed the conversation to make sure